And hello, everybody. Welcome to the Weekday Warriors of Wrestling, being recorded on Friday, May 21st, 2021. I am Eric Clancy, joined as always by Mr. Patrick Kelly. We're going to be talking Velveteen Dream's release. We're going to be talking Dynamite. We're going to be talking AEW's Night Change, and we are going to be talking. We're going to be answering some Q&As again. So thank you all for sending your Q&As, your comments, all those things. Always appreciate it. How you doing, man?
You're great. It's the end of a long week, and I'm ready to party.
Yeah. So let's jump right in to. We're gonna get to Dynamite. We're gonna get to AEW, but I know we do have listeners that do watch WWE and do want us to talk about WWE and NXT and all things such. So why don't we talk about Velveteen Dream, Patrick Clark, the 25-year-old wrestler who was released yesterday from his contract. I'm trying to think of an analogy in sports or acting or something of a bigger fall from grace. And Jamarcus Russell in the NFL comes up to me. For those of you non-NFL fans, Jamarcus Russell was an LSU quarterback who was drafted first overall in 2007, basically by his Sugar Bowl performance and by the fact that he was 6'6", 260 pounds, had a cannon for an arm, and he lasted in the league for 2 years. He was terrible, and it was one of the biggest busts of all time. Velveteen Dream.
Ryan Leaf comes to mind too.
Yeah,
we're going to make those type of comparisons. Yeah.
The only thing that persuades me from not saying Ryan Leaf as much as Russell is because Russell was number one and Leaf was two. So there was a team that thought that Peyton Manning was better than Ryan Leaf, And
they were right.
Yeah. Yes, they were. But let's get to Velveteen Dream. I'm thinking of analogies, and I cannot remember a time where a guy seemed like such a sure thing, such an absolute can't miss prospect. And I don't know. At one point, he seemed like he could be the heir apparent to The Rock and John Cena, and he was going to main event multiple WrestleManias. There was all sorts of boxes that this guy checked, and he's been released, and we can talk about those reasons now. But Patrick, can you think of something in wrestling where there was a can't miss prospect like this that just absolutely missed?
I can't. The closest I can think of, I know a lot of us thought Monty Brown was going to be a really big deal, and he didn't really pan out, both because he was booked into oblivion, and B, he never really evolved beyond his initial hot starting point. But even that, Velveteen Dream, and a lot of us view NXT because this is how it was conceived, as kind of a developmental, and you kind of judge guys as like, ooh, is this guy TV ready? And so, you go in the indies and you build up your cred that way, and you get a lot of the moves down and everything, but there's still other little things that to help enhance your character that a lot of these more seasoned indie guys don't really have, and that's NXT is there to help them do that. Velveteen Dream seemed like a guy that had everything put together. He's just it was kind of like, he's so young, he's so fresh, he's so exciting. And it's just amazing to me because it felt like the sky was the limit. It's like, dude, he's only going to get better from here.
Yeah. I mean, and you saw him go. Now, he was by no means a perfect product at the end, but you saw the leaps and bounds that he improved, and he had a lot of things that you'd look for. He had great size. He's 6'3", 230, in great shape. He had a bit of an awkward look to him. He stuck his stomach out a lot and arched his back. It was a little weird, but his mic skills showed great potential. He wasn't perfect on the mic, but he was really good, especially for his age and his experience level. He was good in the ring, and he was continually improving. And I think the best part of his game was his ability to work the crowd. He and I think he had a great mind for the business. A lot of his like storylines and things he did in NXT, whether it was the Aleister Black saying his name storyline and match, whether it was the Cassius Ohno knocking him out in 30 seconds, like he really, he was really, he seemed to have a great mind for the business. And then, of course, you know, I think two things happened. I mean, we'll get to what we've heard. The major reason was that he was actually released, but and on top of the other things, he had a great gimmick.
Going back to the gimmick, I've recently been bitten by the nostalgia bug, and I've been diving into researching the old WWF Hasbro toy line because that was one of my favorite action figure toy lines as a kid for obvious reasons. And talking to other people about it, our favorite figures in the line were the ones that were like based on the characters that were, quote, the most toyetic, the ones that you could look at them and say that would make a great action figure. And Velveteen Dream is one of those guys that absolutely would have made a great action figure had one been made.
Yeah.
Just instantly, he just looked cool.
Yeah. And I think two things happened in 2020. First, he started to wrestle without an audience, and I think that exposed him to a degree. That I think there was a lot of sizzle and not as much substance as people thought. And then, of course, the allegations. You know, I don't know if these are true. I'm one of those people that believes if there are enough people that are accusing you, where there's smoke, there's fire. You know, like I feel like I remember when Arnold Schwarzenegger's allegations came out, and it's like these all seem like these happened. You know, like however many years ago. So like I'm inclined to believe if it's multiple people. WWE's investigation. I don't trust WWE's investigation because I know what kind of company they are. But I mean, I don't know. Nobody not nobody, but most people don't know. But that happened. And that's like, I mean, if you're a publicly traded company and you want a guy to be on your magazines and your books and your toys and do your speaking engagements and make a wish and to ring in the New York Stock Exchange and all that kind of stuff, then they've got to be squeaky clean. And, you know, like
it ain't the 90s anymore.
Yeah, it isn't the 90s. Like, I mean, if you think Shawn Michaels would have gotten away with the stuff he got away with back then, like now, and like saying the things and stuff, like it wouldn't happen. It would not happen today. Triple H, like Triple H is a totally different human than he was 20 years ago. Like looking at how go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You go.
Oh, well, I was going to say, since we're going down the line of the click, I was thinking, you know, a guy that squandered his career and let his vices get in the way of what could have been a much bigger and better career was Scott Hall. And Scott Hall, he had his career halted in a time when there was a lot more leeway given to that kind of behavior. It's like, dude, if Scott Hall were around now, he'd be blacklisted almost instantly.
Well, I think the issue with Scott Hall was it was affecting his performances in the ring. And I think when that happened, like, you know, Shawn was coked up and like, you know, drugged up all the time, but you never would know it in the ring. Like he always gave A+ performances, where eventually with Hall, it hampered him. And the difference with Hall and Dream, I mean, there's many differences, but Hall had a much longer career, and the drugs and stuff was always like, oh, he would have been bigger if he didn't do those things. But Hall still had like an epic career. Dream was just at the like start of his career. You know, he was just he was right at the beginning of it. So it was just, and quite frankly, I don't see AEW touching him. I mean, Ring of Honor could, because they're Ring of Honor. New Japan historically has like not given a shit about that stuff in America. Like they booked Michael Elgin much longer than American promoters would. But you know, they don't seem to be.
One example I was going to go to was Dr. D. They picked him up right after the whole Stossel incident. They made it his gimmick.
Yeah. So like, I mean, but is Patrick Clark the type of worker that would go? Like, I don't know. I do not know. However, from what we're reading today, apparently it wasn't even those allegations. Apparently it was his, and this was a very vague and general term, Patrick. It was behavior issues. The idea that that Clark was friends with a lot of people higher up in the food chain and management, and people felt uncomfortable bringing up his issues. So apparently that was what the issue was. But I mean, this is a guy that I don't think we saw him since In Your House, right? Or
It's been a while.
no, he came back. I guess he came back in this last summer. So yeah. So I mean, that is just a like boy, oh boy, what a turn of events.
Very unfortunate because again, you said it, and I agree with you. Like a few years ago, we were all like, "Dude, this guy's the limit," and I don't know, he just dropped the ball. Now, I guess there's always a possibility of some kind of a redemption. You saw it with Jeff Hardy. You saw it with Drew McIntyre to a degree, even though Drew McIntyre didn't have the major issues.
Drew McIntyre wasn't accused of like, screwing around with underage kids.
Yeah.
Drew McIntyre was accused of being slightly lazy at his job. That's like, I think it's
and having a wife that was kind of crazy.
Yeah, like these are not in the same bits.
Mm-hmm. So we'll see where Velveteen Dream lands. Now the problem is he can't take that gimmick with him wherever he goes. So if he does show up somewhere else, he's going to have to show those creative juices off and try to come up with something else.
Let's hope that's the only juices he's showing off.
Yeah, right.
All right, so let's talk about AEW. Let's talk about the big news this week. We talked about this when TNT got the NHL package. That there's Wednesday night hockey. They may want to put that on TNT. I didn't think they would move it. I honestly did not, because I understand that. I understand the fact that AEW has much higher ratings than the NHL does, and the NHL. But the NHL, on the other hand, is a more prestigious property to have. That said, AEW's gotten great support from the Turner networks and Warner Media. I didn't think they'd move it, but they did, and now AEW is going to be Dynamite is going to be on Wednesday nights in 2022, and they're going to be on TBS. This will also have a 1-hour show called Rampage on Friday on TBS, and there will be four yearly specials on TNT, which immediately, Patrick, my brain went to two places. One, Clash of the Champions, which always, was kind of a big special. Number two, I mean, I think everybody thinks this, but I think it's accurate. I think those are going to be the shows in between the pay-per-views. So it's like Bash of the Beach or Beach Brawl or whatever the January one will be. Like I hope they don't. I really hope they retire the name Fighter Fest, because it's a parody of Fire Fest, and that's from 2017. So I think we should move on from that. Whatever that July show is, some sort of October anniversary show. So I think they're going to be these like in between shows, maybe one in March, to bridge the gaps between the pay-per-views.
And that's cool. When you move channels, you change networks, you always run the risk of losing your audience, because how many of them are going to be aware of the change and everything else. So there's that risk there, but I'd be lying if I said that the old WCW fan in me isn't like a little nostalgic, where it's like, oh, they're going back to TBS. That's kind of cool. It's like, oh, we're getting Clash of the Champions back. That's pretty cool. It brings back some good memories, if nothing else. But again, there is that risk that kind of probably making some people panic a little bit, but we'll see how it all plays out.
So my risk to it, or my thought of a risk, has nothing to do with the ratings, because I think AEW fans are loyal. They're going to follow them there. There's cross promotion. It's not going to be like when WWE went from USA to Spike TV and they like USA censored every mention of it. And the same thing when they tried to go back. People will find the channel. I think it'll be fine. My risk is that the perception is a downgrade, and that's not necessarily to wrestling fans, but it's people in the business and advertising community. Ostensibly, there's no difference between TNT and TBS, right? Like they both get like, I don't know, like 90 something million homes or whatever. Like it's not it's not really different. But in the minds of executives, in the minds of programming executives, TNT is the flagship. TNT is where the big movies go, the big action and sci-fi and fantasy movies. TBS gets like comedies and they get sitcoms and they get baseball, but like TBS is, I think, definitely positioned lower than TNT. TNT is like the flashier, like more cosmopolitan network, and TBS. Uh, I don't mean this to be insulting, but it has kind of that like old Southern wrestling feel to it, as a station. I know it's not. I know it's a big company, but that is that's what I think the risk is of doing this. I mean, they're getting more content, they're getting more money for this, and I hope they use this to leverage when they go into that 2023 expiration of their deal, because I mean, I'm sure that like FX could be interested, or I don't know, any of these other channels would be interested in having this content. The stigma of wrestling is going away among executives, and they're more likely to use it to prop up some of these networks that don't have anything that draws any viewers, especially in the 18 to 49 demo.
Yeah, wrestling nowadays, like fans will follow the wrestling. And, in the age of the internet, streaming and cord cutting and all this other stuff, wrestling will always have like that set audience there. And I think that's more attractive now more than ever.
Yeah. And we'll see. I feel like I wonder what I wonder if they're going to adopt a Sunday Night Heat format to that Rampage show, like to build into to make it an event. Like, let's say you have Rampage on the Friday in the same city that the pay-per-view is going on, and then they have a fan fest on Saturday, and then they have the show on Sunday, or something along those lines. I wonder if they're going to do that, because I know some of the reports from like customer response surveys and stuff after Double or Nothing 2020, when it was still going to the MGM Grand, the reason it didn't sell as well as 2019, apparently a lot of fans wanted like a fan fest there. Now I was of the opinion that there were too many star casts, like they did them too much and it decreased the speciality. But apparently there were fans who are like, I want to go to Starcast and I want to go to an AEW show. They like make a whole weekend out of it. So like, regardless of what Eric Clancy thinks, like if your customers are telling you that, then you probably got to do something about it. So yeah, so it's a pretty big move. I think they said we're going to be getting that second show towards the end of the year.
I'll be very interested to see what they do with that, because I really enjoyed it, especially in 1998. I really enjoyed the Sunday Night Heat and Raw pairing. Like there was something about waiting an entire week for a show, and then on Sunday you get kind of sort of a preview for the show, and then Monday you're kind of like you're to go. So if they could position Rampage as something like that, I think that would be really cool.
Yeah.
And your pay-per-view has a free pre-show. That was the other part of it. That was kind of neat.
Yeah. You're really like boosted buys and things like that. Yeah. All right. Patrick, what did you think of Dynamite on Wednesday?
I thought it was solid as far as like, setting up the card for Double or Nothing. Unfortunately, I feel like this card is, with a few exceptions, it feels a lot more rushed than their other pay-per-views, where
I agree.
Most of their other pay-per-views, it feels like we've been waiting months and weeks and months for these matches. And here it's like, it feels like they built everything into blood and guts, and now they're just kind of scrambling to put a card together. Not that it's a terrible card, but it's just kind of like, it doesn't feel like it has that epic buildup to it that their previous shows have had.
Yeah, I would say, and I'm going to pull up the Double or Nothing card right here. I would say the matches that I feel like have been built up over time and have given time to breathe has been Bucks against Moxley and Kingston, which I think should probably be the main event. That or the Stadium Stampede. I do not think the
It's
three-way.
probably going to be Stadium Stampede, if I had to guess.
I hope so. Because I'm extremely underwhelmed with the world title match.
Yeah, this is a Patriot and Bret Hart situation. I feel like.
Yeah, it really is. Like, I like Orange Cassidy. Like, he's fine, but they like missed the boat on making him like a truly special attraction, like an Undertaker, Andre the Giant style attraction. Um, Pac is great. We know that, but like this is like, I I mean, Kenny Omega's a good heel, and he's been built fairly strong, but I don't feel strongly about the other two going against him. You know, it's like they announced a match for a number one contender, and then nobody won, so now there's a three-way. You know, that's all it is. It's kind of like there's not a lot of meat on this bone for me.
Now it feels like they wanted to save Hangman and Omega, which we both said is like the big thing that they're building to, but they didn't want to do it yet. So they're like, let's just we've got Stadium Stampede, we've got Sting wrestling. Let's just kind of fart out a world title match out of obligation.
Yeah, I think yeah, you know, like I think and so other than the Bucks, Moxley, Kingston, I think the Pinnacle and Inner Circle match is a big one. But you know, John, who listens to our shows, he messaged me the other day, and he was like, you know, the Stadium Stampede so close after Inner Circle, after the Blood and Guts match, and I was like, and I actually didn't respond to him yet. I will in a few, but I agree. I think like Blood and Guts to me should be the feud ender, right? It should be like the end, you know. And we went from this is the ultimate death match thing to like Stadium Stampede, which last year was was fun as shit. And okay, so I'm going to say two things here. Number one, Stadium Stampede 2021 could be totally different, but Stadium Stampede 2020 worked really well because we were like a month and a half into this pandemic, or maybe 2 months into the pandemic. There was no content from that, like during that time period. Everything had been canceled. Sports, there wasn't really TV shows. CBS was like playing like old like Indiana Jones movies and stuff. There wasn't anything out there. So Double or Nothing 2020 happened, and the Stadium Stampede was this kind of lighthearted fun, and we all just had a good time watching it. It was the perfect match for that time. And Stadium Stampede this year, after Blood and Guts, just seems like a bit of an afterthought. Now, I know when MJF says, like, it's not going to be fun and games, you're going to have to disband, blah, blah, blah. So they hinted at the fact that it's going to be more serious, but it still seems like it's so soon after the previous one. Like, it doesn't seem like Jericho's even going to be able to wrestle because he's got like an arm injury. I don't know. I mean, I'm open-minded about this, but it just feels a little anticlimactic.
It does. And again, speaking of the whole Rush thing, had it been like 3 or 4 months in between the two, it would probably be okay. But we just saw, like, I highly doubt they're going to top Blood and Guts, even with the, you know, the botch with the finish and how that came off and everything. Like, Blood and Guts was like this bloody, dirty, you know, violent spectacle. And I just don't see Stadium Stampede living up to that. I could be wrong, but we'll see.
Yeah. So yeah, you know, I agreed with you. I thought the show was fine. That was how I described it. It was fine. I think they're building up Anthony Ogogo well, but it's odd to me that they had to bring in like the US UK stuff against each other. Like, I know a lot of people really didn't like it, like Cody's promo and such, but I didn't mind it. I didn't mind his promo. I think it was a very roundabout way to get to like, I'm going to use the American Dream name, but I think you already have the story, you know. You have the story of this like break off faction, and you know, I think, you know, I would say Ogogo would be a guy that you want to like hitch your cart to, but I know he has like 70 or 80% blindness in his left eye. So I would just wonder how long he's going to be a viable worker. And I wonder, like, do you want Cody losing to a guy like that, you know?
Yeah, again, the way they're booking him, like you said, is very, very cool and old school. It reminds me of when Haku first showed up in WCW as Ming, and he was just super kicking people, and that was literally all he would do. And it made him look like a badass when he first came in. I'm like, oh my God, this guy's awesome. And Ogogo kind of has that going for him right now, but I don't know what the long-term potential of it is. That's the big question mark, right?
I mean, if they've done medical and they've determined, hey, your eyesight's this way, and you're gonna like, and he can work around that, then like fine, then you know, hitch the wagon to him and like, you know, go all the way. But like, I just think you have to be careful when you have like, you know, there's very few stars in wrestling, and Cody's one of them, and you don't want to, you know, completely waste him.
Oh yeah, for sure. But you know, to play devil's advocate a little bit, PCO, Pierre, isn't he blind in one eye?
That's a great point. That's a great point. Yeah, he is.
Yeah. And so if you can work around it, you know, Texas Tornado, he worked with a fake foot and nobody knew it.
Yeah, and he and PCO's had a 30-something year career. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Yeah. So I thought Acclaimed, Moxley and Kingston, I thought was fine. I thought that opening rap was freaking brutal, brutal, and like he was really aggressive with that shit. And
Attitude era stuff. I like it.
Yeah, I wonder if Moxley took a few shots at it, but I like Moxley and Kingston as a team. I think they seem like legit. You know, we've talked about that in this show when people legit seem like they can kick your ass. Moxley and Kingston give off that vibe. I love Eddie Kingston. I think any wrestling promotion can use more Eddie Kingstons. You know, so I like that match. I thought it was a good opener. Or it wasn't even an opener. I'm sorry.
Going even further, I like that they're using Wild Thing as their theme song, and AEW is doing that more and more. They're using legitimate music for the entrance themes, and I think that's working out pretty well because, you know, unless you have someone like Jim Johnson who
is available, somebody can sign that guy.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. Just saying. Unless you have somebody like that, your theme musics that you develop in-house are probably not going to be that great. And AEW's, a lot of their themes aren't bad, but they're not at that like classic WWF level that you would want. So if you can't live up to the old standard, might as well just get real songs, and it sounds great. Orange Cassidy's new theme is great. I love it.
I would have preferred Jane if they got that.
Oh yeah, that would have worked.
Is Orange Cassidy's like denim inspired by Wet Hot American Summer? Do you know that?
I don't know for sure. I wouldn't be surprised if it was.
It's just with like that song and that outfit. It just is like, are you like pulling a Paul Rudd here? I don't know. Yeah, so I thought the show was fine. You know, I thought Jericho's promo was pretty good. I thought the Pinnacle's promo was pretty good. You know, it was fine. It was a fine show, right?
Yeah. For the situation that they're in, where they're kind of rushing to throw a card together, they're doing the best they can, I guess.
Yeah. All right. Well, why don't we move into our question and answers here to close out the show?
Let's do it. Before we start, I would like to point out that Anthony, who sent in the question last time we did a show, he sent in the question about whether or not we watch Australian wrestling, and he emailed us again and recommended that we check out PWA, which has a YouTube channel, and they have full shows available on Fight TV.
All right. Excellent.
So if you're so inclined, you can check it out there. All right. Got the questions pulled up. First up, from AJ Envoy version 2. What was your favorite TNA storyline in the history of the company? Well, obviously Claire Lynch.
I don't think I was even watching when Claire Lynch happened. I think you had to explain it to me.
Oh God, Claire, it was the worst thing ever.
Wasn't that when AJ had his started to grow his hair long and he was like emo kid looking?
Yes. This was like the genesis of him becoming that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
But yeah, they did this whole thing where it was like AJ was having an affair with this woman who was played by an actress that was moonlighting as Olive Oil at Universal Studios. And
wait, was that in the storyline?
No, that's where they got her. She
Oh,
was
okay,
she was
okay.
olive oil at
Oh,
Universal Studios. And they said, "Hey, you want to play Claire Lynch in this great storyline we cooked up?" And the entire thing was just a confusing mess where it's like, oh, she's pregnant with AJ's baby, and it's like, what the fuck is going on right now? And Russo, I don't think was there at this point, and they're doing shit like this.
wasn't he just there the entire time?
I see that was confusing. I don't know. I think he had Dixie's ear, and maybe that's what was going on. Where it's like, oh no, he's not really here, but he was in contact with Dixie.
Yeah. Well, let's answer AJ's actual question of our favorite
Yeah.
TNA storylines. You go first because I'm thinking through it.
If I had to pick one, I would probably say like the rise and fall of Beer Money, because to see James Storm and Robert Roode like get thrown together and then become like one of the best tag teams in the company's history, and then ultimately split and feud with each other over the world title and have that violent match that they had at Bound for Glory to kind of pay everything off. It's like that overall was a pretty good storyline that featured two guys that probably wouldn't have gotten the chance otherwise. They needed to be put together and put in that awesome did really great work for the tag division for a while.
Okay, so so here's the thing. I don't know if TNA ever had any like ultra great storylines or anything. The one, like they had like great matches and stuff and like build-ups, but I can't like, so the one I'm gonna say like wasn't complete because I don't think it ended very well. In fact, I don't even really know how it ended, but I really like the idea, excuse me. I really like the idea of Kevin Nash taking out the entire X division and like saying they're all too short and stuff, and like, which also was his team with Alex Shelley, which was fan freaking tastic. Kevin Nash and Alex Shelley's like shorts and their like paparazzi production stuff is like some of the funniest stuff. It's like, to me, it's funny where people are like, oh, let's see Alex Shelley now in 2020. I'm like, dude, Alex Shelley was like a star in 2005. Like the idea that like no one found anything for him or he didn't do anything, it was always just freaking weird to me. But they were hilarious together. But I really like the idea of Kevin Nash just like saying, hey, these guys are too small and blah, blah, blah. And he like kills everybody. And then like the end to that storyline, which I don't know if it ever had a proper ending, but the end of that storyline is like you take an X division small guy who you want to like strap a rocket to and you have him beat Kevin Nash. I don't think they ever did that.
No, they didn't. Nash got quote unquote hurt. And I think Saban was supposed to beat him on pay-per-view in a rematch, because I remember they did the one match where Nash beat him and then Saban was going to come back and beat him. And Nash got hurt and that match got canceled. And then that was pretty much the end of it. And then Nash became like the friend of the X division where he's like, oh, I'm going to help him develop personalities. And that's how you got, you know, Sanjay Dutt as the Guru and Black Machismo, Jay Lethal, and things like that. But it didn't get the payoff that it should have gotten.
Yeah, and I don't think I would have. That's another thing. TNA had terrible like talent selection. Like I don't think I would have picked Chris Sabin to be that guy. Like Sabin was fine, but he was always just blasé to me. I don't think he would have been the guy I would have used. You know, I would have used like AJ or someone at that point. Even though AJ was like would go between the world title and the X Division title all the time. Like, you know, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So that was mine. Good question.
Okay. Next question from Sasha. Why do you feel like the WWE's Cruiserweight division isn't as interesting as WCW's from back in the day?
Easy answer. I will easily answer this. Oh, by the way, I was looking up PWA and they've got that caveman Ugg guy there. He's like pretty awesome. So interesting.
Ooh, nice.
Probably check this out. Easy answer, because the WCW Cruiserweights did something that the WCW heavyweights didn't do. Whereas the WWE Cruiserweights do the same exact things that the WWE heavyweights and main eventers do. So there's absolutely no point to doing it.
That is absolutely 100% correct. When you've got Hulk Hogan and Lex Luger and the Giant and even Sting, who is a little bit more flashier, those are the guys that you have closing out your pay-per-views. When you have guys like Rey Mysterio, Dean Malenko, Eddie Guerrero, Psychosis, Juventud, Chris Jericho, all those other guys, and they're flying all over the ring. That looks a lot more special because it's completely different from what they're doing in the main event. And it's one of those situations where it's be careful what you wish for, because for years, a lot of, marks were like, dude, put the cruiserweights in the main event, And they basically did.
Yeah.
Because now cruiserweights in the main event is like expected at this point. And by doing that, any chance of a cruiserweight division working is slim to none, because I can't watch a match with like 19 Canadian destroyers and shooting star presses when I know all that stuff is coming in the main event anyway. So it's like there's no separation between the two anymore.
Yeah, there's no branding difference between it.
Absolutely. All right. Now from Tim, what are you currently reading?
Oh, like books?
Books, yes.
I'm a terrible reader. I'm not reading any books right now, which is like the most embarrassing thing a person can say, right?
If you're busy, I mean,
I am fairly busy, but I am reading comics. I am catching up on the Marvel stories that I missed in the past like 6 years. So I'm reading through the 2015 Secret Wars. That's where I'm at right now. I started off in like March 2015 through like Jonathan Hickman's Avengers run, but now I'm almost through Secret Wars. So that's really the only thing I'm reading beyond like emails from work and things like that. Which is, I'm sorry, I should be more cultured. I'm embarrassed.
Well, I have two answers because I'm splitting my time between comics and actual books. And all of it on the nerdy, nostalgic side of things. So comics, I'm going even further back, and I just finished reading Marvel's run on G.I. Joe from the 80s, which might be my favorite comic series of all time. I love the G.I. Joes.
Really?
That whole series. Yeah, it's probably my favorite. Snake Eyes is awesome. I love that dude.
How long did that series run for?
10 years, I believe it was 10 years, 155 issues, and then the offshoots like the special missions and things like that. And they did a 4-part series with the Transformers.
Oh man, that's right up your alley.
Yeah, right. And speaking of Transformers, since I finished with G.I. Joe, I'm like, let me read Transformers, because I have very little experience with that. I think I read maybe 2 or 3 issues back in the day and never really dove into it the way that I did with G.I. Joe. It's not as good. It's kind of like there's a lot of fumbling their way through the trees and trying to find out how to establish all these characters. And the way they wrote out Optimus Prime was downright pathetic. But, I'm kind of enjoying it. It's like, maybe if I was a kid, I'd like this more. But, and as far as books goes, I mentioned, bitten by the nostalgia bug. I got a giant book that details the history of the He-Man and Masters of the Universe toy line and all of the toy lines, including She-Ra. And I've been diving through that, and it's a really fun read, especially if you like the history of toys and action figures.
Oh, nice. I actually have one thing that I am not reading yet, but some people might find it interesting. I have it ordered from, I think it's like Black Hammer Publishing or something. Anyway, it's a graphic novel. It is a sequel to the 1989 film Society. Which, have you seen that, Patrick?
Years ago. I haven't seen it in a long time.
Well, I won't spoil the twist for anyone watching it or going to watch it, even though it's like 30 years old. But you should watch it because it's awesome. Anyway, there's a graphic novel that was published by a Scottish imprint in, I think, like 2002, and I have that being delivered pretty soon. So that's something that I'm actually that I'm going to have a physical copy of, and I'm going to read.
Very nice. So yeah, we're reading. We're keeping busy.
Yeah.
We're cultured and everything and stuff. Final question from Cody. Complete hypothetical here. If Toho Studios and Kodakawa Studios got together, made an agreement, and finally did a Godzilla versus Gamera movie, what would you like to see in it, and who would you have go over?
Okay, I'm going to let Patrick take most of this because I have never seen a Gamera film. So, like, my answer to your question is obviously Godzilla wins. I know Gamera's like the friend of children or whatever, and he's a turtle and he does gymnastics and stuff. And
Flies.
you know, he goes in like, doesn't he like, he's on like a bar and he like goes in circles a bunch of times.
He did that once, but no, he flies.
All right, all right. Well, anyway, I don't know anything about Gamera beyond those facts that I just named. So Godzilla should go over squash match. But no, I'm kidding. Go ahead. I don't, Patrick, what do you think?
Well, I mean, if you've watched both series, actually, one of my fondest memories is the Sci-Fi Channel back in the day. They did a Godzilla Gamera Day marathon that was hosted by Mark Hamill. Dream come true. Loved
That's
it.
amazing.
Best 4th of July weekend ever. And so the Godzilla Gamera fans have thought about for years and years and years and years. And for me, I think if they were going to do the movie, Godzilla would have to go over because I think Toho is just super protective of that brand. I think personally, I think Kong was supposed to go over in Godzilla versus Kong, this new one, but I think Toho stepped in and said absolutely not.
I don't.
And they,
I don't. I'm going to interrupt you there. I don't think that's true because apparently, who was the director on this? It wasn't Michael Dougherty. It was
Wingard, Adam Wingard.
Yeah, Adam Wingard. Yeah. So they asked him. They're like, "Did you get any meddling or arguments of the winner of it?" And he said, and he's like, "No, thankfully not, because we both agreed of who the winner would be." So I think the studio and he had that agreement because I think there's an undercurrent of like disappointment from King Kong versus Godzilla that Godzilla didn't win. So I think this was always going to be, I mean, this is the monster versus Godzilla's like thing. He's got 3 movies. Kong had 2.
Yeah.
I think he was always going to go over that.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. So, all right. I just assumed that based on the movie. I thought they cooked up the whole Mecha Godzilla thing as a way to have Kong, quote unquote, win without beating Godzilla. And that was kind of a compromise that they reached. But we won out because we got Mecha Godzilla out of the deal. But that was just my assumption. So it's good to know that I'm wrong. But I still think if they were going to do this movie, I think Godzilla would almost have to go over. He's the bigger name. He's got more of a worldwide presence. I think there would be no question that he would go over. What would I like to see? I would like to see other monsters from the 2 franchises interact with each other. Like, I'd like to see Gamera fight like Rodan or King Ghidorah, and I'd like to see Godzilla fight like Gauss. And oh god, if they could bring Giron back, that would be amazing. Giron is probably my favorite Gamera monster from the original series, and unfortunately, I think the best time to do this movie would have been in the 90s, because that was when Godzilla, they did the Heisei series, which is probably my favorite version of Godzilla. It's best design anyway. That's when Godzilla looked the best, at least to me. And Gamera had his big trilogy, which was like the Dark Knight trilogy of kaiju films, where it's like, holy shit, I didn't know Gamera could be a badass. And it was awesome. And monster movie fans love those movies. And I think Gamera has never been more popular than he was during that period in the 90s when those movies were coming out. So I think if they were going to do it like late 90s, early 2000s would have been the time to do it. So I don't know if there would be that much interest in Gamera now. I mean, there is from dorks like me, but I don't know if they could get people excited to see him.
So I just looked up this Giron guy because I had no idea what you were talking about the entire time. And he's like a freaking lizard with a sword on his face.
Yes, he's just a big knife head. He also shoots like little shuriken ninja stars out of his head.
Out of his head? Oh, I see. It comes out of this little hole thing. That's fucking weird, right?
Yeah, some of the Gamera monsters were pretty weird.
Oh, man. And they seem to like... Does he have a lot of like crawling enemies?
Yes, there's Barugan.
I know. Listen, first of all, it's Baragon because that's how I said it when he was in every Godzilla video game, which led me to believe he was a Godzilla monster. No shit. He is in Godzilla, War of the Monsters.
It's okay, here's the thing. It's 2 different monsters. The Godzilla, or Toho, I should specify. Toho has Baragon and Gamera has a Barugan.
Oh.
They're 2 different monsters, and fans have been like, that's one of those weird fan things where it's like, wait, are they the same monster or what? It's like, no, they're just
he's
very similarly
He's like
named.
a Komodo dragon with a horn on his nose.
Yep, and he shoots rainbows out of his back.
What is Baragon's only in Destroy All Monsters, right?
He was in a movie called Frankenstein Conquers the World, which
Yes,
I believe
which has Varan in it, right? Maybe.
no, Varan got his own movie back in the 50s, and that was
Which
a
is
whole weird.
which is hilarious. Varan the Unbelievable. That's a movie that somebody made about Varan.
Yeah. It was supposed to be like a Hollywood and Japanese like cross promotional thing, and something fell through. But Toho just went ahead and made the movie anyway. So what you got was kind of a second rate Godzilla out of it that unfavorably matches up against when you compare it to the original Godzilla film, the original Rodan, and some of the other movies that Toho was making at the time. Varan just kind of gets lost in the shuffle.
Oh man, this Varan guy, he's gonna be a huge hit in America. Let me tell you, huge.
Yeah, so and then poor Varan, he got reduced to a 2-second cameo in Destroy All Monsters.
Yeah, and he like kind of
And
flies.
he was supposed to be in the movie Giant Monsters All Out Attack. That original movie was supposed to be Godzilla versus Anguirus, Varan, and Baragon, but then they took out Anguirus and Varan and replaced him with Mothra and King Ghidorah for that.
By the way, that's the Toho version of being like, let's put The Rock and Austin back in this match.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was. That was the whole justification for it. It's like, yeah, Mothra's more of a box office draw, and people know who King Ghidorah is, so it makes more sense.
Yeah, let's do 18 movies with these same monsters.
And that movie came out just a few years after Mothra had just had her whole trilogy where she fought King Ghidorah in the third movie.
Don't you mean Death Ghidorah?
No, Death Ghidorah was in the first movie. Then in the third movie, she fights the actual King Ghidorah.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't see those movies, so that's why I didn't know what I was talking about.
I'm very knowledgeable about this one very specific thing.
Yeah.
Japanese kaiju films.
Oh boy. All right. So I think that's about it. I hope everybody has a good weekend. You listen to the podcast, enjoy it, and do all those fun things that we like you to do. Like, subscribe, comment, send us questions. We'll go through them again. But want to thank everybody for listening. As always, we definitely appreciate it. But for Eric Clancy and Patrick Kelly, we are
signing off.